My name is Isabel Grant. That year I was 36 years old, the woman behind a string of luxury resorts along the west coast of the United States. But to my family I was still the forgettable one no one bothered to mention. Even when they organized the annual family reunion at the old property once owned by our grandparents, they had no idea the place had changed hands. They left my name off the list as if I'd never existed. They didn't know the person holding the keys to welcome them was me. Have you ever been erased from your own family's memory? So share what that felt like in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you want to know what happened when I stepped out of the shadows and made my family face the truth they tried so hard to bury. This story begins right where they thought I'd never return. I still remember that afternoon when I was 16. The kitchen in my grandparents' beach house was filled with the scent of pastries and window cleaner. Everyone was busy preparing for the first big summer party. I stood at the sink scrubbing pans, my hands red from hot water and soap, while Ethan and Madeline's laughter echoed from the porch. My mother walked past, glanced at me, then turned to Emily and said, "Go help Madeline set the pastries on the tray. Let Isabel finish up the kitchen so we can move faster." No one asked if I was tired. Not a single thank you. I got used to that early. At every gathering I was the one carrying ice buckets, setting out glasses, handling breakfast. When it was time for the family photo, I'd get called at the last minute, shoved to the far right, my shoulder tilted awkwardly because I had just set down a tray of food. It was like that in every picture. I smiled, half-hearted, my face dim next to the glowing ones of someone who'd just gotten into college, or was newly engaged, or had just bought their first car, with mom and dad's money. I was never the reason anyone celebrated. The year I got into Stanford, on a full scholarship for business administration, I printed the acceptance letter, laminated it, and placed it on the breakfast table where my parents always sat. I even knocked on their bedroom door, holding the letter with both hands like a kid bringing a drawing to the grown-ups. My mom was folding laundry. She glanced at it and smiled faintly. "Oh, Stanford, huh? That's good." Then she looked down again and kept folding Ethan's dress shirt like the words on the paper meant nothing. 3 days later, the whole family flew to France to support Ethan, because his first startup had just dropped him from the project. I stayed home alone. No photo. No congratulations. Not even a postcard from Europe. I called once during their 2-week trip abroad. My mom answered from Venice, her voice distant. "You doing okay?" I said, "I got the dorm confirmation letter." She replied, "Good, keep it up." "Oh, I'll call you later, your dad's ordering food." Then the line went dead. It was in moments like that I learned how to swallow disappointment. I don't blame Emily. She was still young, always following orders like, "Help Madeline with the dessert table," or, "Ethan just had a hard time, don't bring up Isabel's grades in front of him." But the hardest part to forgive was the silence. No one objected when I was left out of Grandpa's birthday dinner. No one asked why I didn't come home that Thanksgiving. No one ever called just to ask, "How's life treating you?" I lived. And I grew up with answers I gave myself. At Stanford, I worked in the library and a small coffee shop, enough to pay rent and keep my mind grounded. On weekends, I emailed family updates. I kept the tone light, shared funny moments, attached photos from school events, secretly hoping someone would read them. No one replied. Just automated responses. Message received. Thanks. Ethan was trying out a food delivery app in Dallas. Madeline was in law school, mostly funded by my parents. Emily had joined an art program in Italy. They all received care packages, check-ins, mentions on mom's Facebook page filled with pride. As for me, I was that one at dinner. The one they asked to quote something from Harvard Business Review or check grammar on Ethan's pitch deck. One summer I came home unannounced. When I walked into the living room, they were watching vacation videos from Greece. The screen showed them paddleboarding, Ethan falling into the water, everyone laughing. I stood there for a few minutes, then headed into the kitchen. Mom turned around, surprised. "Oh, when did you get in? You should have told me so I could prep the guest room." I said, "Just wanted to surprise you." She didn't ask another question. I stayed for 3 days. No one asked where I'd been, what I studied, or if I was happy. Before leaving, I left a photo on the breakfast table. Me in my deep red graduation robe, standing on the stage holding my degree, smiling quietly. On the back I wrote, "Even if no one sees me, I'm still standing." No one ever mentioned that photo in the years that followed. Until the day I bought the family's old vacation house. The place where all those forgotten memories began. I left home with 2 suitcases and less than $3,000 in savings. No one came to see me off. No hugs. Just my mother's voice drifting behind like a breeze. Go see the world, but don't expect it to bend for you. I walked out of that weathered wooden door, not knowing I was stepping into a path no one in my family could have imagined. I took every job a fresh graduate could find to survive in San Diego. Pouring coffee, data entry, cleaning hotel rooms. But between the long hours and aching feet, I studied financial reports, learned how to appraise properties, and dug into public foreclosure auctions. At first, I was an invisible intern at a small brokerage firm, but I observed more carefully than anyone. While others chased commission, I watched for forgotten assets, rundown houses with potential. I trained my eyes to see beyond cracked walls, to smell mold under the carpet that pointed to bad plumbing. I learned how to talk to desperate sellers and understand owners drowning in debt. My first flip was an old house in a rundown corner of Riverside. After 4 months, I made $30,000 in profit. I didn't spend it. I reinvested it. One by one, house after office building I bought, renovated, renamed, and sold. By year 4 post-graduation, I stood in front of my first fully owned villa. No mortgage, no cosigner. That's when I founded Marrow Group LLC. No one in my family understood the name's meaning. No one cared to ask. Marrow was the name of the dog I had in elementary school. He died when I was 10 because Ethan slammed the kennel door too hard and fractured his hip. No one took him to the vet. I buried him in the backyard, carved his name into a stick and painted it white. Just like me, he was forgotten even after being buried in his own yard. Since then, Marrow Group became the quiet name behind dozens of property revival projects. We didn't advertise loudly. We didn't court investors with noise. We quietly restored what others considered ruined. An abandoned senior apartment complex in Santa Barbara? I bought it and turned it into a retreat for veterans. A neglected golf course in Napa? I converted it into a mental wellness center. Every space I touched carried the same message. What was once forgotten could become a place worth living again. When I got word that Grant's Seaside Retreat was headed for bank auction, I didn't feel joy. I felt a chill down my spine. That place held every moment I was pushed out of family dinners, every time I silently wished for a warm look from my parents. But maybe that's why I didn't hesitate. I sat in my car for 2 hours, parked by the ocean, staring at the old house through the familiar pine trees, and decided I would buy it. 3 months later, the paperwork was complete. The deed now belonged to Marrow Group. No one in the family knew. I had my legal team handle everything under corporate ownership. Even Mr. Blake, the longtime property manager, only knew the buyer was a redevelopment firm. We sent a formal letter in neutral legal language. Effective next month, all operations at Grant's Seaside Retreat will be managed by the new property owner. Please contact us to update any event rental inquiries. Then came an email from Ethan. Not to me. He sent it to the resort's front desk address, asking to reserve rooms for the annual family reunion, and requested a discount because our family used to own this place. It's part of our legacy. I read that line again and again. Used to own. Family legacy. Not a single word about me. Blake called me, his voice slightly hesitant. Grant, I just got a request from a Grant family asking for special pricing. They say they used to own the property. Want me to respond? I smiled, holding my warm mug of coffee. It's all right. I'll take care of it. I opened a fresh email, typed every word with steady fingers, and kept it professional. We are honored to accommodate your family in your upcoming stay. Please provide a full list of attendees, desired check-in and check-out dates, and any specific accommodations so we may assist accordingly. No discounts. No special treatment. But also, no rejection. They would come. They would step into the place they once believed was theirs. And they would have no idea, until I decided to reveal it, that the woman they had forgotten now owned every brick, every window, every corner of the dining table where they once turned their backs on me. 3 days after the title transfer was finalized, I got a call from Mr. Blake early in the morning, just as I finished steeping a cup of black tea and was preparing to join a virtual meeting with a partner in New York. His voice was exactly as I remembered, deep and polite, but there was hesitation behind it. Grant, I hope I'm not interrupting. But I thought you should know. It seems the Grant family, or rather the former owners, are planning to host their annual reunion just like before. They've contacted the front desk. I paused, hand tightening slightly around the porcelain cup. The scent of Earl Grey still lingered in the air, but its taste suddenly dulled on my tongue. I assume they don't know who the new owner is? I asked, keeping my tone as calm as possible. No ma'am, Mr. Blake replied. They're requesting the old rate and even asking for a 25% discount, claiming long-standing ties and historical contributions. I let out a short laugh, dry and cold, as I set the cup down on the wooden table. Is that so? Did they say who contacted you? I have a copy of the email right here. It was sent by Mr. Ethan Grant. My brother's name flashed through my mind like a spreading ink stain. Impossible to erase but no longer distinct. I sat down, opened my laptop and asked Mr. Blake to forward the message to me. Less than a minute later, the email appeared on my screen. Subject: Support request for the Grant family event. To the operations team at Marrow Group. We are the Grant family, former owners of the resort currently managed by your company. We would like to host our annual family reunion at the beginning of next month and hope to receive special pricing. Reason: the resort holds emotional and historical significance for our extended family. Please note, some family members such as my sister Isabel have made no contributions to our community or legacy efforts and will not be attending. We appreciate your cooperation. Sincerely, Ethan Grant. I reread the middle part of the letter. My sister Isabel has made no contributions. I leaned back, tilted my head and laughed, short but sharp. 12 years of working, building and buying back the very house our family once gathered in without me. Erased by a single sentence. I opened the window, letting the salty morning breeze in. The air from the ocean calmed me. I turned back inside, opened a new email and used a mid-level operations account from Marrow Group that I rarely accessed. To Ethan Grant. Subject: Venue booking. Response: Marrow Group. Dear Mr. Grant, thank you for reaching out. We greatly respect the emotional and traditional value our clients place on properties managed by Marrow Group. To ensure the best experience, please provide the following: full list of expected attendees, exact check-in and check-out dates, any special accommodation requests. Please note, price adjustments are considered on a case-by-case basis and do not take prior ownership history into account. Sincerely, Isabel Harper, Senior Operations Associate, Marrow Group LLC. I signed with Harper, my grandmother's maiden name. No one in my family remembered it. I chose it as a gentle but deliberate disguise. A thin veil, just enough for me to stand close and see their faces clearly, without being recognized too soon. That very evening, Ethan replied with a list of over 20 people and a reminder. We'd like to avoid any confusion or unexpected appearances by individuals not formally invited, including Isabel. I forwarded the email to Savannah, my best friend and the only person who ever shared a Christmas dinner with me in our empty freshman dorm room. She called me immediately after reading it. He actually wrote that. Not formally invited? Savannah hissed. What are you going to do? Blow the place up when they arrive? Or make the whole party dine outside on the lawn? I don't need to blow anything up, I said calmly. I just need to sit still. Because when I sit still long enough, everything starts to unravel on its own. Savannah went quiet, then spoke softly. You've come so far, farther than they ever imagined. They just don't know yet that you're already at the center. I looked back at the resort floor plan on my screen. I had signed off on the renovation of the conference hall, redesigned the main lobby, replaced all the furnishings with luxury-grade pieces. Not for their approval, but so I could look each one of them in the eye as they stepped into what they still believed was theirs. And then they would realize, none of it was. No memories. No names. No authority. I shut the laptop, picked up my phone and texted Mr. Blake, continue treating them like VIPs. Don't say a word. I'll be there in person for the event. A few minutes later he replied, understood. I'll be ready. That afternoon I stepped out of a black Bentley in front of the Grant Seaside Retreat. My charcoal gray suit hugged my figure neatly. Hair pulled into a high bun. Thin black sunglasses covering half my face. I wore only a touch of makeup, just enough to keep my lips from looking pale beneath the scrutiny I knew was coming. Blake waited on the marble steps. The ocean breeze whispered through the trees, carrying the sound of waves crashing against the rocks. The air was familiar, but this place no longer held any trace of the past. I had replaced it, curtain by curtain, fork by fork, plant by plant, with everything I had chosen. "The Grant family has arrived, Mr. Blake said softly, his eyes scanning my face. "No one recognizes you. Are you sure you want to stay in this role?" "I want to see them," I replied, straightening my cuff. "From just enough distance. At least until I'm ready." We entered the main hall just as the second SUV pulled up. The car door opened. Ethan stepped out first, confident stride, voice unnecessarily loud as always. "Wow, this looks totally different," he said, tilting his head to take in the newly painted exterior. "Used to be moss all over the roof. Gotta admit, someone did a good job here." Madeline followed right behind, wearing a fitted white dress, clutching an Italian leather purse, her gaze sweeping quickly around like she was evaluating the market value of the place. My mother stepped out last, carefully adjusting the beige cardigan draped over her shoulders, her eyes scanning for something familiar, but finding none. "Welcome to Grant Seaside Retreat," I said evenly, voice calm but firm. "I'm Isabel Harper, Operations Executive at Marrow Group. It's a pleasure to host your family." Ethan shook my hand first. "Thanks, very professional. The place looks totally different. Almost didn't recognize it. But yeah, it's great. You've been working with the new owner long. Long enough to understand the value of this property," I smiled. Madeline didn't shake hands, just nodded. "I heard you replaced all the interior?" "Yes, the interiors with flooring, HVAC system, conference room structure, and VIP suites. All have been upgraded to meet 5-star standards. I'll be happy to give your family a full tour after check-in." My sister once said, "Isabel, that one, she studied hotel management or something, but I've never seen her actually apply it," Ethan said, chuckling as he turned to my mother. "It wasn't hotel management, I think it was some kind of business program," my mother replied in an even tone, as if she were talking about a distant acquaintance, not her daughter. "But we haven't heard anything in a long time. I'm not even sure where she lives now." I led them through the main hallway, walls lined with abstract artwork, recessed lighting highlighting every detail. Each piece had been personally selected from a small collection by emerging art students. I wanted this house to reflect not just elegance but renewal. "This is the Ocean View Suite. It faces the ocean, includes a private balcony, minibar, marble-soaking tub, and imported Italian wood flooring," I explained, opening the door. My mother stepped in first, her eyes catching on the large mirror mounted on the wall. "This mirror," she murmured. "Wasn't there one just like it here before?" "The old one had a rotted frame and cloudy glass. This is a replica, custom-made," I replied. Ethan set down his suitcase and nudged Madeline. "Miss Harper, if our family wants to have dinner on the back patio like we used to, will that cost extra?" "There's no additional charge if it's reserved at least 12 hours in advance and guests meet the stay requirements," I said without blinking. He grinned and turned to my mother. "Great. Tradition's what counts. The one person missing this year probably won't make a difference anyway." "Right," my mother nodded. "Isabel was never really attached to this place. She never liked it here. Always sneaking up to the attic to read instead of playing with the rest of the kids." My chest tightened for just a moment. I wasn't hiding. I just wasn't invited. Absence wasn't a choice, it was the result. "What about the others in your group?" I asked, keeping my tone neutral. "Did anyone decline?" "Our youngest sister, Emily, is uncertain. She's in Paris and might not make it back in time," Ethan said casually. "But at least the person who shouldn't be here won't be." We stopped at the base of a spiral staircase leading to the exhibition space. "If anyone wishes to use this area for an event, please let me know. It's equipped with international-grade sound systems, an interactive projection screen, and a fully programmable LED lighting rig that can adjust color temperature by time of day." Madeline glanced around, her fingers brushing the stainless steel railing. "It really doesn't feel like the place Isabel grew up in." I turned to her, my voice steady. "Not everyone sees the potential in the place they came from." "Well said," Ethan smirked. I never thought Isabel had that kind of vision. She's not really cut out for the caliber of people this place attracts." I looked him straight in the eye. Maybe not. But sometimes the ones you overlook are the ones who've been watching everything. No one said a word. I invited them to continue the tour through the main building, unaffected by the very comments that once haunted me as a child. But I was no longer hearing them as the forgotten girl in the room. I was the one holding the keys to every door they passed through. I stood at the head of the banquet room, warm amber light spilling across the polished wood floors, sparkling against the wine glasses set on each table. The scene was picture-perfect, almost eerily calm. My family had gathered around the long table draped in hand-embroidered linen, porcelain dishes and scented candles, while a string quartet played a gentle piece in the background. No one noticed when I had stepped in. I scanned the room. Ethan was pouring wine for my mother. Madeline was fussing with her napkin to match her dress. My mother was asking the chef if the soup contained gluten. They lived inside a perfect little bubble I had never been allowed to enter. But tonight that would change. I cleared my throat just enough to pause the music. Apologies for interrupting dinner. I have a brief announcement. I'd appreciate a few minutes of your time. Everyone turned. Some eyes blinked in surprise, others squinted in confusion. My mother furrowed her brow, clearly trying to remember who I was in this unfamiliar black suit. Ethan frowned. Madeline raised an eyebrow as if trying to deduce what level staff I might be. I stepped forward, removed my sunglasses and placed them on the table beside the candle centerpiece. The light caught my eyes fully, nothing left to hide. Then I slipped off the suit jacket, folded it neatly and set it over the nearest chair. The black dress beneath was simple but structured. No accessories needed to make it stand out. I took a deep breath. Welcome to my home. Silence. Not the awkward kind. Not polite or uncertain. The kind of silence thick as tempered glass that's just cracked all over, waiting for the slightest touch to shatter. Ethan spoke first, his voice hoarse. You're home. I nodded. That's right. I am the legal and sole owner of this property as of 4 months ago. You are sitting in a space I personally renovated, rebuilt and redesigned, brick by brick, bulb by bulb, chair by chair. My mother leaned back slightly, her lips parted to speak, then closed. Madeline reclined, her hand resting on the table, eyes wide with confusion. I don't understand, Ethan said. Isabel, how did you? I pressed a button on the remote. A large screen descended behind the table. The lights dimmed. The first image appeared. A photo of the mansion's facade taken during a cold winter afternoon. Roof leaking, paint peeling, one window shattered, weeds spilling into the driveway. No one said a word. When Marrow Group acquired this estate, it was on the verge of foreclosure. No maintenance for months. Electrical system in critical failure. Termite damage in the load-bearing walls. One more rainy season and the eastern wing could have collapsed. I clicked again. Close-ups of the roof leaks, moldy walls, a dilapidated kitchen, pooling water from broken pipes. Some guests winced. What you're sitting on now, I said, was once debris. I put nearly a year's worth of my startup salary into this project, along with every dollar I saved from 3 previous real estate ventures, to restore it. Not because I needed a place to live, but because I wanted the place where I grew up to have a chance at rebirth. My mother whispered, voice trembling, "You did all of this." No one in this family ever asked what I was doing, I cut in. When I left home, I was the girl no one needed to know. I wasn't on any guest lists. The year I received my honorary MBA, you were vacationing in the Caribbean with Ethan. The year I started my business, no one asked if I needed help. And now, it seems you've all been invited back to a place you thought belonged to you. Ironic, isn't it? Ethan abruptly stood, his chair scraping loudly. You should have told us. You should have let everyone know. Not pull some dramatic reveal like this. Dramatic. I raised an eyebrow. I sent dozens of emails, invitations, updates. I mailed my graduation photo, left it on the dining table. No one read them. No one cared. If I stayed silent again, that would have been the real performance. Madeline remained still, her eyes fixed on the screen, which now showed the final photos of the restored property. Bright living rooms, a modern kitchen, a twinkling backyard filled with string lights. I didn't do this for revenge, I continued, voice lower now. I just wanted you all to know I was here, quietly working without recognition. And tonight, I no longer want to stay silent. The soft lighting came back on. No one touched their food. No one said another word. In that moment, I didn't need anyone to agree with me. I only needed them to understand that everything they once dismissed had become the foundation of something they could no longer ignore. And now I was that something. I walked over to the wooden table beside the fireplace, the spot where my grandmother used to sit knitting, and opened the lid of a small, simple box carefully polished. I placed it at the center of the dinner table, turning it gently toward them like I was presenting a birthday cake no one in this family had ever prepared for me. In here, I said, voice steady, are all the things I sent you over the past 10 years. No one replied. I opened the lid. Inside were neatly organized folders, printed photographs, unopened envelopes, copies of emails I had sent, each with a visible date stamp in the bottom corner. Some pages had faded ink from how long I had kept them. I had kept them. I could never forget. I pulled out one photo, me standing on the graduation stage at Stanford holding my diploma, dressed in a deep red robe with the school's large emblem behind me. I held it out toward my mother. I sent this home with the letter about my full scholarship. Don't you remember? It was once on the kitchen table, right where you usually kept the tablecloth. My mother said nothing. She looked at the photo like she was reading a weather report from a distant city. She didn't recognize the stiff smile on my face, the smile that had tried to be both proud and hopeful. Next, I took out a printed article from a business magazine. Isabel Grant, 30 under 30, the quiet force behind California's most impressive property revivals. Ethan read the headline, then glanced at me with a mix of disbelief and confusion. He gave an awkward chuckle, half apology, half defense. Why didn't you tell us? I mean, if you had just explained, I'm sure. When? I interrupted. When I sent hundreds of messages that no one answered. When I mailed my graduation photo and everyone was on vacation. Or when I called home on Thanksgiving while I was alone on campus and Mom said, every family has someone who sacrifices, and that person was always me. No one laughed. My words dropped into the room like a stone hitting still water, sending ripples wide and silent. My mother blinked, her hand rising to her lips, as if recalling something she didn't want to remember. But I didn't stop. I used to write letters. Weekly emails. Talking about the classes I loved, the jobs I took on, the nights I nearly gave up but kept going because I hoped someday someone in this family would ask, "Are you okay? Do you need anything?" But year after year all I got was silence. Or worse, those quiet reminders that I was different, not really involved, and didn't fit the family atmosphere. Ethan lowered his head. There were no excuses. There couldn't be. Madeline gently touched his shoulder and whispered something, but he didn't respond. I pulled out another photo, me standing in front of Marrow Group headquarters on the day we opened our first office. The plaque behind me read, Founder Managing Partner, gleaming in the sunlight. I used to believe that success would change how the family saw me. That maybe someone would be proud to know the quietest girl in the house was the one who brought this family's landmark back to life. But then I realized, people who never truly see you won't recognize you even when you're standing right in front of them. I paused for a few seconds, then lowered my voice. There are wounds that don't bleed, but they ache for decades. I used to think it was my fault, that I wasn't interesting enough, friendly enough, lovable enough to be noticed. But now I know, I've always been exactly who I am. It's just, none of you ever learned how to see me as someone who mattered. My mother clasped her hands together, her eyes glassy but no tears fell. She had always been good at hiding her emotions and she was trying to do it now. Isabel, she spoke softly. I'm sorry. I nodded. Not forgiveness, just acknowledgement that I'd hurt her. I don't need an apology. I didn't do this to shame you. I just wanted, once, to stand where I was supposed to be. Not in a photo, not in an email, but here. In this room. Silence filled the space. Even the chandelier above seemed to quiet, letting the warm light fall directly onto the table, onto the memories I had placed before them. And now, if everyone's seen enough, read enough, maybe it's time we face the truth. I'm no longer the ghost at this dinner. I'm the one who opened the door to let you in. And I'll be the one to decide when it closes. Madeline adjusted her seat, lifted her wine glass to her lips but didn't drink. She swirled it gently, her eyes drifting over to me, then slowly set it down. If Isabel really invested in this property, she began, voice calm but edged with that familiar coldness, then Perhaps we should seriously discuss buying the resort back. At a fair price, of course. This is a family tradition, it can't be left to one person to control. I turned to look at her, my gaze steady and flat. Not everything can be bought. The answer was short but sharp enough to cut the air in the room. Ethan grimaced, about to speak but stopped. My mother lowered her head. I looked toward the end of the table, the seat for my youngest sister, Emily, still empty. No one had mentioned her all night. No one asked why she hadn't arrived. The dining room door creaked open. A breeze from the ocean swept in and footsteps followed. Emily walked in, her coat still dusty from travel, dark brown hair loose around her shoulders, her round glasses making her face look exactly the same as when I'd last seen her. On a gloomy afternoon 8 years ago when I left a family gathering I hadn't been invited to. I stood stunned. She hadn't called ahead. No messages. But her eyes found mine instantly, unwavering. Emily walked forward, said nothing to anyone else. She stopped beside me, opened her bag and pulled out a yellowed envelope. I think this belongs to you. I took it, hands slightly trembling. It was a letter I had written when I was 23, sent from my first cramped apartment in San Diego. The envelope was still sealed. The stamp had faded. The handwriting on the front in my blue ink was still legible. To Mom, Dad, Ethan, Emily. My mother reached out but Emily shook her head. No, you don't get to keep this. You told me Isabel never wanted contact. That she cut herself off out of pride and ambition. But I found this in the locked drawer in the basement. Never opened. No one ever read it. I looked at Emily. How did you know it was real? She pulled another photo from her pocket. It was of the two of us, taken one summer afternoon when we had snuck out to play behind the apple tree. I had my arm around her. We were both laughing, holding an old point-and-shoot camera. You tucked this photo inside the letter. On the back you wrote, Emily, if you're the first to read this, I hope you know I never forgot you. Her voice cracked. And I never forgot you. My mother covered her mouth. Ethan turned away. The room had never felt more suffocating. Emily looked at me, her eyes shining with a quiet, buried rage. I believed in you. For a long time. I just didn't know Mom hid that letter and that everyone stayed silent. I'm sorry I didn't come sooner. I gently squeezed her shoulder. It's not your fault. You were the only one who ever stood outside that circle. And you're still outside it, because you never turned your back on me. Ethan sprang up. You think Mom hid something? No one in this family meant to abandon Isabel. Be quiet, Emily said, sharper than I'd ever heard her. You're the one who wrote that email saying she contributed nothing and shouldn't attend. You're the one who always talked about her like she didn't belong. Mom knew the truth and never said a word. My mother sat still as a statue, her eyes vacant. Finally she spoke, each word cracking from her throat. I just thought she didn't need us anymore. He was so strong. She seemed fine without the family. I took a deep breath. Being strong doesn't mean you don't need love, Mom. Strength is not an excuse to be forgotten. Madeline quietly pushed her chair back, her posture tired, but she didn't argue. Maybe we should leave. It's clear this place isn't meant for us anymore. No, I said, my gaze fixed on her. I'm not asking anyone to leave. But this time if you stay you need to accept one thing. I'm no longer the silent girl behind the kitchen door. I'm no longer the name left off every invitation. Emily turned toward me, gripping my hand tighter. And if you need someone by your side this time, I'll be the first one there. I nodded. I didn't need to say more. Because after all these years, sometimes one honest sentence was enough to melt the fog of memory. But the rest of them, they would have to face the storm they created with their own indifference. No door stays closed forever. But when it's finally opened by the hand once pushed aside, no one gets to cross the threshold unless they truly understand the value of being chosen. I sat by the second-floor window of the estate, the late sunlight slipping through sheer white curtains and falling across the open planner on my desk. At 11 o'clock tomorrow morning, I would leave for Europe to sign one of the most important contracts of my career. A deal that would expand Marrow Group into 4 countries and lay the foundation for a global footprint. Everything was aligning exactly as I had dreamed. But my mind wasn't fully there. I kept turning over the cream-colored invitation Emily had slipped into my hand last night, after everything had settled. It was handwritten in soft violet ink. Even if you don't need to come back, we still want to call you our sister. I truly want to start again. I know it won't be easy. But I don't want to lose you again. I hadn't replied yet. I still wasn't sure what I wanted. A knock at the door lifted my head. It was Mr. Blake. Calm and composed as always, he stepped inside holding a small, square wooden box wrapped in a pale linen cloth. I found this in the old storage behind the attic, he said, placing it gently in front of me. It was wedged between two crates of old books. Your name is carved on the bottom. I thought, it should be delivered to you personally. I unwrapped the cloth, fingers brushing the smooth wood. There were delicate engravings, faded by time but still legible. Isabel, never forget who you are. My hand froze. I hadn't seen my grandmother's handwriting in almost 20 years. The way she always tilted the I, just a bit too far left, slightly out of alignment with the rest. I opened the lid. Inside was an old leather-bound notebook, its corners worn. I recognized it immediately, her journal. She had written in it daily. When I was little, I often saw her jotting things down in the kitchen after baking. She never let anyone read it, but I knew she recorded every small detail in the house. Things no one else ever noticed. The first page was dated, a summer the year I turned 8. I flipped forward. Her handwriting slanted and steady. Some pages talked about the tomato garden, others about a new dress my mom had bought or Ethan learning to ride a bike. Then I reached a page near the center where the ink was darker. Today, Isabel sat reading alone in the backyard again. She never asks for anything, never makes a sound. But the way her eyes scan the table at dinner, it clenches my heart. Everyone assumes she's fine. But I see something different. She's quietly learning how not to need anyone, and that's more frightening than anything. I kept reading, each line peeling back layers I had worn for years. If one day she reads this, tell her she's always been the strongest one of us. Not because she's the best, but because she's the only one who kept going without needing reminders. Isabel, if you're holding this journal, forgive those who didn't know how to love you properly. And if you can't forgive them, that's okay too. Just please don't ever believe you were never loved. I closed the journal, tears falling onto the back of my hand. I had heard countless sweet words in boardrooms, had received hundreds of standing ovations after strategy presentations, had signed deals worth more than my family ever imagined. But no one had spoken to me with such honest, gentle, unconditional words as those lines just had. I didn't sob. I just let the tears fall, quietly, without resistance, without hiding. Because for the first time in 20 years, I didn't feel entirely forgotten. I sat there for a long time. The room remained still. But inside me something began to shift. Not quite forgiveness, not fully softening, but something long buried behind shut doors was slowly cracking open. I placed the journal back in the box, wrapped it again in the linen cloth. My hands still trembled as I locked the lid. But inside my chest I could breathe more easily. Maybe, even though no one had chosen me all these years, someone had quietly chosen me long ago. And that person had now left behind something no reunion, no late apology, no last-minute hug could replace. Something that made me never again have to ask, was I ever needed? I had my answer. And it lived in the curved, imperfect, yet utterly true words on that page. I stepped out of the car, suitcase gliding quietly over the marble tiles of the international terminal. The airport buzzed with morning travelers, but the noise felt distant, muffled beneath the overhead boarding calls and hurried footsteps on cool stone floors. The glass doors reflected my figure, coat neatly pressed, hair pinned back, eyes no longer tired but steady and quiet. I had just stepped near the business class check-in area when I saw 4 familiar figures standing together a few paces ahead. None of them said a word. No signs, no waving hands. They just stood there, my mother, Ethan, Emily, and Madeline, as if they had been waiting for a very long time. In my mother's hands was a bouquet of white roses, the kind she used to arrange on the breakfast table every Sunday morning. Ethan held a small gift box, a card taped to the top in neat handwriting. Congratulations, Isabel, the only one in the family who built an empire. I slowed down, looking each of them in the eye. No one spoke first. My mother lowered her head slightly, visibly uneasy, but didn't offer an apology. Ethan glanced to the side, still clutching the gift like something essential he didn't know how to give. Madeline held Emily's hand, her gaze quiet. I stopped in front of them, keeping just enough distance to see them clearly without being swallowed by the silence. "No need to say anything," I began. "I'm not here to hear apologies. I've lived long enough without them." Emily stepped forward half a pace and spoke softly. "But if you ever need us, we'll be here." I nodded. My eyes carried no resentment but no forgiveness either. I looked straight at Ethan, the one who once said I had contributed nothing. "I don't need you to apologize for never choosing me. But from this point on, I'll teach you how to start over, just like I did. In a different way. By showing you what it looks like to face the presence of someone you once dismissed." I opened my handbag and pulled out a thick envelope, holding it out toward my mother. "This contains the full outline for next year's family gathering. If anyone wants to join, submit an application including something real you've achieved this year. Not to brag, but to prove you want to rebuild something. And if you don't, that's fine too. Someone else will fill the seat." My mother accepted the envelope with both hands, as if she were receiving a part of herself that she had lost long ago. She said nothing, only touched the edge of the envelope carefully, as if afraid to tear the last chance she had to step into the circle she had once closed off. Ethan's face tensed. He looked like he wanted to argue, but then he sighed. "Will there ever be a moment when you'll forgive us?" I looked him in the eye. "I'm not aiming for forgiveness. I'm aiming to live with clarity. If one day you want to walk beside me, I won't stop you. But if you don't, I'll keep going." Madeline spoke, her voice nearly a whisper to herself. "We should have known sooner." "No," I said. "Not should have. No. Because the past is mine. The present is yours, if you dare to face it." A voice came through the airport speakers. "Business class passengers on Flight 818 to Zurich, please proceed to Gate 6. I tightened the strap on my bag, ready to leave. My phone buzzed lightly. A message from Savannah. "Tokyo and Milan both want in. Which one first?" I looked up at the sky through the airport's glass ceiling. Clear, endless, as if no limit truly exists unless we allow it to. I texted back, "Both. They'll know who I am. And this time I choose my own family from the beginning." I looked back at them one last time. Emily stepped forward and hugged me tightly. "I'll go wherever you need me. And I'll bring roses, not to apologize, but to remind you that someone once loved you the right way." I smiled. "And if you forget, I'll remind you with everything I've become." I stepped through the security gate. Each footstep sliced through the years I had been forgotten, and stitched back every crack with thread made of freedom. I wasn't walking for revenge. I was walking to redefine everything: family, worth, choices, and especially myself. I don't know if every decision I made was the right one. But I do know this. Sometimes in life we can't wait for someone else to hand us our place. We have to build it ourselves, brick by brick, step by step, even if it means walking alone, even if we're overlooked. I used to hope to be chosen. Now I choose myself. But what about you? If it were you, standing before the family that once forgot you, what would you do? Forgive, move on, or take back everything in your own way? I truly want to hear your thoughts. Share them with me in the comments. Not just for this story, but because maybe someone out there needs to hear your voice to rise up. And if you want to keep following powerful, honest stories about family, about choices, about human worth, hit that subscribe button. There are still so many lives that haven't been heard yet. And who knows, one of them might just be yours.